Let's move on to the next topic. We're going to talk about why. Well, I think it's obvious, this question, to be honest. Are Spurs too open? But I guess we can just delve into why Spurs are too open. Because, again, you bring it back to the first 10 games of the season. We weren't letting in too many chances. Vicario, well, he was making top saves, but not too many of them. And now it just seems like one ball down the middle and that's it. We're completely sliced open. So why do you think that is, Josh?
I think. Well, I don't know if Sim's got the stats on this, but I do.
Of course he does.
I do feel like we did give away a lot of chances at the start of the season as well. I feel like we did. There were a few games where we kind of were similar on XG with the other team and got away with it, and we're not getting away with those now. Like similar to on Saturday with Wolves, we had a similar XG. Sometimes we've won those games in the past and we haven't this time around. The other thing I would say is set pieces have just fallen off a cliff in the second half of the season. I don't know what has gone on, but it's like we have now been, we had the stuff going on with the barging of Vicario and people putting players on Vicario. Now we're bringing players to try and save Vicario and they're not marking any players in the box. It's just... Get Jedinak out of my club, man. He does the defensive set pieces, so get him out of my club. He obviously doesn't know what he's doing. But yeah. I
mean that set piece that we conceded against Wolves. I mean, shocking. What the hell was that? What was that? I mean, the guy João Gomez was just completely free. Nobody in acres of space of him. I think Son was the closest man to him. But I mean, how can you seriously defend a set piece like that in the Premier League? It mind boggles me, man. It really does.
I do think we are too open in general, though, and that sort of thing, we see it a lot. How many times have you seen, let's say, the opposition right winger, it's been switched to him from the left flank or something like that, and then you see Porro is like the last man, and there's like two players behind him, like waiting at the back post, and sometimes the ball doesn't make it. And that's fine, like we get away with it, but that happens all the time. So there's definitely something with our defensive positioning that needs to be sorted out.
Agreed. Dave, what are you thinking? Are you in agreement with Josh why we're so open?
Yeah, to a certain degree. Look, I think one of it is the press, right? Earlier on in the season, we were turning the ball a lot higher up over the pitch with a lot more intensity, right? Which meant teams struggled to get out. I also don't think teams showed us respect over the first 10 sort of games in the season. But when we went on that run, we earned that respect. So what they started doing then is just sitting back, blocking up the middle. And, that's why we're seeing a lot of the sort of tight passing so that we don't get hit on the counter, because effectively we're just left with two back there. The full-backs are gone, all the midfielders are involved, all the forward players are involved. So you're left with two there. But as we've seen in recent weeks, individual mistakes, being caught in possession, is what's leading to a lot of these counterattacks. Maddison last week, how many times did he get picked? Bentancur, Basuma at the weekend. It's becoming a real problem. I almost feel like the way we keep possession, it's so boring that almost the players are getting bored and that they're switching off slightly, and that's where they're sort of getting picked. As for defensive set pieces, I mean, I'll be brutally honest, I actually don't blame the coach for that one. I just blame it on desire of a player wanting to go and be that guy to head the ball. I grew up in an era where you had 2 or 3 defenders pulling each other out the way to try and go and clear that ball. Now I'm sitting there looking at them and you're getting free headers left, right, and centre. It's like it's absolutely embarrassing. That's not a coach. That's just someone on the pitch holding players to standards. We lack that severely with the young squad we have. That one player on the pitch that will hold people to standards. But there's a number of reasons, while we're being hit on the counter. Earlier on, teams left themselves a high line. We exploited that. Now they're sitting back. They've found a way to play against us. Stifle Tottenham, take the ball, go and hit them on the counter. And now it's a period where we have to, find the right answers, adjust a little to stop that from happening, and things will be fine. I don't think it's actually that much of a massive issue. I really don't. You either players from being in possession drop back in between the centre-backs like what Pochettino used to do with Wanyama on occasions, and form a tree at the back and give yourselves a bit more solidity. Or, you get one of your fullbacks to drop in and stop him from overlapping. So there's a couple of things that Postecoglou can do to sort that out. It's not drastic. It's not a major problem.
In terms of do I have the statistics, Josh? I don't have the statistics on the XG, but what I can tell you is in the first 10 games, we conceded 9 goals in those first 10 games. And in the next 15 games, we've conceded 28. So there's clearly been a massive drop-off in terms of how many goals we are conceding ever since, we had those injuries. I think for me, I do think it's a system issue, but I don't think it's an issue per se which can't be resolved by continuing to play the system. But I think the fact that we are playing this system is definitely causing the issue, if you know what I mean. So how I see it in the first 10 games, what was the big difference was we were a lot better when we kept possession and getting the ball into the final third. We had people like Basuma at his confident best, striding forward, carrying the ball a lot more. We had Maddison dropping deep, controlling the game, keeping possession while also being creative. We had obviously Kulusevski was playing on the right. He was keeping possession really well. Obviously the left wing was maybe a bit of an issue. That's why we kept chopping and changing. Son was doing a really good job. Son was actually doing a lot better job with his overall play, I felt, in the early part of the season as well, like his over passing, moving, keeping possession. He was actually doing quite a underrated job at that in the early part of the season. And then because we were doing such a good job keeping the ball and still progressing the ball forward while keeping it, whereas now I feel like we just keep it a lot for keeping sake without progressing it forward that much. We were doing such a good job progressing the ball while going forward. It limited the opposition's chances of countering us. They only had limited chances, and when they did counter us, we were very much set in their half, which meant they were rushing their passes to go long. And when they're rushing their passes, more often than not, you have Van de Ven and Romero coming over, sweeping up those long balls, and we were able to sustain the pressure. What we have now is, first of all, Maddison's only just come back from injury. I do think he's done a decent job, but he's only just coming back. Basuma Basuma's not looking his best self at the moment, so we're really struggling at keeping the ball and progressing it into dangerous areas. We're having more often than not people like Werner and Johnson on the wing, where when the ball comes to them, basically how we manipulate our play is that we get the inverted fullback centrally so that it frees up those wingers in high positions, so they're always basically in one-on-one situations. But because they're not very good in the one-on-one situations, essentially, and not very good at keeping the ball, we're basically turning over the ball a lot more times, a lot more frequently than we were in the early parts of the season. And when you give the opposition more opportunities to transition on you, they're going to find more opportunities to find that space that we are inevitably leaving. And because we're not sustaining the pressure like we were early in the season, we're not setting their half like we were. So we're not making the opposition rush as much as we were in the early parts of the season, which means they're finding it a lot easier to find wingers like Neto, whoever, in those spaces, in those wide areas. And like where early part of the season it was Van de Ven, Romero coming over and covering, which they're still doing to a certain extent, but I just feel like the opposition are finding way too many opportunities to be able to pick out those attacking players in the transition more frequently, and it's leading to way too many opportunities being conceded by Spurs. If we can get back to those levels that we were showing in the early part of the season, where we're able to progress the ball while keeping it and sustaining that pressure, which led to opposition defences having to clear the ball rather than pass it out, then I feel like the system can work. But right now, the system is leading to us conceding a lot of chances because we're not able, the little dynamics like Basuma's ability to progress the ball forward, all that kind of stuff, it's not the same level, and it's leading to a lot of difficulties at the moment. So I do believe that can change. I do believe we can definitely tighten that up a bit and get better, but 100% the way Ange is setting us up is leading us to conceding chances for sure. I agree.
I agree with everything you say, and I wholeheartedly agree with the Basuma thing. Like, Basuma's massive drop-off has coincided with, how open Spurs have been at the back. And do you think, though, there's an element, a lot of people have been saying this on social media, I've heard a lot of people say it to me personally as well, that maybe the system and Ange Postecoglou after the first 10 games has been found out a little bit, and people have found, and other teams have found different solutions to play against us, because in the first 10 games we were pretty much a bit of an unknown quantity. What do you think about that, Josh?
I think it's pretty obvious. I think David touched on it earlier. Like, we were given this, we were given the opportunity to like high press teams in the first few games. Like teams would play out from the back against us. Teams would sometimes come out and press us. And it just feels like if you're below 6th or 7th, that no team is going to do that against us. You know what I mean? Apart from Brighton, the rest of them down there, they're just going to sit back. And we need to find other, like it's Ange's job to find other opportunities to hurt teams, because we have been found out a little bit, but like I think this happens to all good teams. I don't like want to sound all doom and gloom or anything like that, because we're going through a period right now. I do believe Ange will come up with something, and I do think there's some simple fixes that can happen in the summer, which is, you know, dribbly wingers, all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? That can change things.
What about a specialized number 6? Do you think we need that?
Yeah, I do. After Basuma's drop off, and it's weird. We kind of need someone that's in between the both of them, but it's like that's going to cost a lot of money, and I can't think of any off the top of my head. So yeah, I'd definitely get a 6 in if we can, but I think I'd still put that as not as important as proper attackers, and probably not as important as at least one backup fullback, like maybe someone that can play both sides, because we can get by with between Bentancur and Basuma if they are both playing at like 80% or something like that next season. Because I think also jumping to conclusions when Basuma's had malaria, he's been away, Bentancur's been out half the season. You never know. They could come back after pre-season and be playing both of them at their peak. And then we're like, we've got a third 6 now. What are we meant to do? Like, do you know what I mean? They're not even going to get in the team. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, we'll see.